In the week 8 presentation, I talk about how to represent words in vectors using co-occurrence matrix. In this topic, I'm going to talk about a different approach, which is called word2vec. It stands for word to vector. We'll see that using this different approach, we will get a more preferable result than the previous one where we use the co-occurrence matrix. Let's get back a little bit to the motivation of why we would like to learn word vectors. So words have meanings, and then one of the aspects of the meaning of words is the similarity, if you recall this from the previous presentation. Now, if we can represent words in vectors, we can compute the similarity between vectors, which means that we can compute the similarity between the meanings of two words. So now, once you have represented the words in vectors, you can compute how similar they are based on the vectors. Let's see an example. Suppose you have the data of customer review of restaurants, and then you suddenly see a word that you're not familiar with, which is called ong choi. And then in that data of customer review, you already have a group of vegetables. So you're sure that these words means vegetables. You also have another group of names which you're sure about that they are actually fruits. So now when you see a new word that you're not sure about what it means, you may check the similarity between the words, between the word ong choi and the words in the vegetable groups. And then similarly, you check the similarity between the word ong choi with the other words in the fruit groups. So using this kind of method, you may get an idea what ong choi is. In the previous presentation, you know that ong choi is actually a vegetable. Before we're talking about how word2vec works, let's see some interesting results from word2vec. Hopefully these results will motivate you to see why word2vec is one of the most well-known approaches out there in the vector semantics domain. These two graphs here show the plotting of word embeddings in two-dimensional space. So you may think of a word in this picture is just a dot in an X and Y axis. Let's take a look at graph A first. It says that if you take the subtraction from the word king minus man, the result is very similar to if you take the distance between the word queen and the word woman. That's very interesting that somehow word2vec may capture the intrinsic meaning between king and man, and it is similar to queen and woman. You can also see that here in this cluster you have a group of words that are related to, like kingdom, like duke, emperor, queen, and so on. And then in another cluster you see that here it captures the words that are related to familial relationship, like niece, aunt, sister, and so on. In graph B, it shows another interesting result, which shows the relation between an adjective, its comparative form, and its superlative form. So from short, shorter, and shortest. Apparently, all the adjectives here shows a quite similar pattern from the adjective itself to the comparative and the superlative. Here you can see it's similar from strong, stronger, and strongest. Slow, slower, and slowest. So when you have vectors that are well trained by your training data, you may capture some aspects of the meanings of words. If you have data sets that comes from different periods of time, you may see how the meaning of a word shifted along the time. So there are three examples here. The first example is the word gay. In the 1900s, is an adjective that people use to say if somebody is sweet or cheerful and such. In the 1950s, still the similar meaning when you want to say somebody is bright or witty, you say the person is gay. I remember the lyrics of a song from the 50s. The song is called The Great Pretender, and the lyrics say, just laughing and gay like a clown. When I heard the song for the first time, and then I was like, wait a minute, so the clown is gay? Hopefully, no, it was not that meaning, because at that time in the 1950s, it means somebody is bright, cheerful, witty, and such. Now we know from the 1990s up to now, I think the word gay has shifted into the meaning of somebody's sexual orientation. And then let's take a look at another example of word. The word broadcast in the 1850s is mostly related to how you spread the seeds in your farm. So it's about farming. But then since the new technology appeared in the early 1900s, the word broadcast is more into like spreading the news through the media, like broadcasting from the radio, TV, and so on. And then the third example is the word awful. In the past, in 1850s, the word awful actually is something like very calm. It is related to solemn and majestic. It shifted to the meaning of something horrible in the 1900s. And then up to now, I think people might still say something terrible when they say it is awful. Then it means it is terrible. But sometimes people also say the movie is awfully good. Means that it is very or wonderfully good. So it has shifted the meaning from the initial, solemn and majestic, into either very terrible or very good. Now this is why I told you for the assignment idea that you might want to take a look at different periods of time to see if the meaning of a word has shifted along the time, which is very interesting, I think. Some researchers have also used word2vec to show that there are biases in the literature. For example, in gender bias. The researchers show that the occupation that is closest to men is computer programmer, while on the other hand, the closest word to a woman is homemaker. And then some researchers also shows that the analogy, remember the man and king, woman and queen that I showed earlier, it shows that father is analogical to doctor, and then mother is analogical to nurse. If you remember your elementary school books, at least this is what happened when I was in elementary school. I hope it has changed along when you did your elementary school. But when I was in elementary school, it's always the role that the mother is cooking or preparing something, and then the father is going to work, or always in that stereotype of roles. And then also some researchers show that there is a racial bias in the literature or in the newspaper articles. So African American names like Leroy, Shaniqua have higher similarity with unpleasant words. However, it is the opposite for the European American names like Brad and Greg. So it means that there is a bias in the literature showing that the European American names usually is associated with the good words. Now you might also think that why don't we just use the co-occurrence matrix? Because we can also get the vectors of the word and then make a plot, for example, to see the relations between man and king, woman and queen, and then we may also trace the shift in the meanings and so on. Well, you might do that, but in the next presentation, I'm going to talk about the advantages of using word2vec and how it works. So this is the end of this section, but I will have the second section talking about that.